Welcome to Techo Guide, the only app designed to help you navigate your college and career journey in the quickest and most affordable way. This podcast is brought to you by EdTechWity, dedicated to opening doors to higher education and career opportunities for all.
What's up, everyone? This is Professor G, and I'm so happy again to see Tio Rob today with us. So, Tio Rob, say hello.
Good morning, everybody. What is this?
In today's series of Minding Your Business, we're going to be covering step 2. So if you missed step 1, go ahead and listen to that podcast because that is critical when you recognize the problems that you're going through. Today, we're going to talk about step 2, really, which is preparing for your best life, Rob. So please, Rob, start sharing with us, how do you go about preparing now for your best life?
I appreciate that. Thank you again for having me on. So the first comment I'd like to make is in our first session, we talked about recognizing the need for improvement in whatever it might be. And that means identifying the issues that are challenging, identify the issues that may hold you back, and whether that be drugs or relationships or anything that was part of your domestication that led you to a life that you're not necessarily that happy with. So now the key to that whole thing in recognizing it is to say, what do I do to take that next step? I discussed on our last episode as well, I discussed the notion that where the why is sufficient, the what doesn't matter. And what that means is, the quick example I'll give is, let's say that there's a high wire strung across a couple of buildings downtown, 15 stories up. And somebody offers you $10,000 to go across that and walk that high wire to go across the street. You say no.
Yeah, no dice. That's too little.
How about $1 million? Easy.
Okay, now we're talking, but it's still very dangerous and it slows my life.
There's no parachute. There's no debt. Okay. So if my granddaughter were across the street, and she was held by a captive in that building with a knife to her throat, man, I'm going over there in a hurry. I don't give a shit.
Yeah. When you put it that way, right? I'm same thing. It's like, oh shit, how? Okay, cool. When someone in our family's in danger, money is no object, right?
Worst case that'll happen is I'll fall and I'll die, and I'm willing to do that to save my granddaughter.
Right.
Just that simple.
And now you're crossing for free, no money on the table, right? Because it's really about.
I mean, a new granddaughter. Okay.
Exactly.
So, having said that, you need to recognize what improvements or what things you might look at in your life that aren't going to carry you very far. Okay. And then you look at the value of the outcome of correcting that. Okay. Or replacing your challenges in life with positive things in life. Now that's the why. Okay. So the why is, I want that life. I don't want a life of drug abuse. I don't want a life of gambling, of being.
When you're putting it this way, I'm thinking like my life, like, I was born into just violence, violent city, violent neighborhood, family, that participated in violence and not only street violence, but internal violence within the family, domestic violence and alcoholism, right? Drug abuse. My brothers, in and out of prison, all for 20, 30 years. My nephews now are in prison. And it was that cycle of violence. And people ask me, like, how the hell did I make it through? Wow, I'm reflecting a lot right now because what you're saying is I realized there was a major problem, right, that I was born into. And I had to make a decision that was not the norm of what the people in front of me and the people around me were doing, which was, hey, let's just do our best to stay in school.
Exactly. Well, I have a history, that caused me to learn a lot of these lessons. I had a father that I didn't want to repeat his racism. I didn't want to repeat his ideas at all. I was looking for my own form of happiness after I got out of the house and I got married and so forth. I've been married a long time, over 50 years, okay? And through my life, there's so many different chapters in my life where I had issues that I had to overcome, whether it be smoking, drinking, gambling, drugs, alcohol, you name it, okay? I was able to be a professional and have a professional career and work, with big companies and do these things. But my private life, if you will, was
your behaviors in your private life were terrible. But your professional life, you were very successful.
Right. I'm a good salesman. Because I don't know.
You can make the money. I can make the money. It's just.
But I wasn't happy.
But I was.
I was anxious the whole time, okay? So by the time I finally got my last obstacle taken care of, which was my weight, right? I lost 125 pounds. And that was the last
Wow.
big challenge I had, except for my ability to really understand how I got to these issues and how I overcame them.
Mhm.
Now I understand that the last 10 years of my life have been by far the best life I've ever lived. I finally found my best life. I started in my early 60s and here I am 72, and every day is just better than the previous day. I couldn't be any happier.
That goes to show our listeners that, we think that we're having our best life maybe in high school, maybe in our 20s, right? Maybe in our 30s, right?
Right.
If you're doing things right and you have that positive mindset and you're being a good person wherever you can, I see your best life really being 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, right? That's where it should be your best life.
Well,
As opposed to us believing that it's when we're young, when we're 30, in the peak of our careers kind of stuff.
The key concept that really came to me is there's a giant difference between pleasure and happiness.
Mm-hmm.
I got all kinds of pleasure from drugs. I got pleasure from, all these things that were not good for me, okay, and not creating my best life, but I got pleasure out of them. That's why I did them.
Right.
It wasn't until I eliminated these fake pleasure centers and replaced it with true happiness based on who I am, what I want, and what my purpose is. So I say all these things as a part of minding your business to say to people, look, going to college is the first why and the first what that you've got to go through. It's a challenge. College is easy. College means you've got to make different choices. You have to choose not to hang out with your buddies. You got to choose to hang out at college. You have to choose to do your homework. Same thing is true whether you want to use college to start a business or whether you want to start a business right now. It doesn't matter. I invested.
You got to invest this big chunk of time, right? Whatever it is, right? Say I'm going to college. I got to invest a lot of time. More than 50% of my time will go to that. If I'm learning a trade, so say I want to be a welder, right? Okay, good.
Right.
I need to go through a welding program. I'm still putting in well over 50% of my time to try and raise that skill, right? Or I start a business, and now it's 100% of your time because as an entrepreneur, there's a little bit of entrepreneur in me. It's 24 hours a day, right? So you have to prepare yourself to do that.
Well,
How do you go about that?
So, first of all, the most important asset that anybody will ever acquire in their life is time. Okay? All right. So you've got the time. Now you have choices. What am I going to do with that time? Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to spend my time seeking pleasure? Or am I going to spend that time arriving towards my best life and achieving true happiness?
Okay, so what I'm hearing is recognize that we all have a fixed amount of time, right? We all have 24 hours a day. We don't know how many days we have, but we all have 24 hours a day, every day, right? And then recognizing there's only a fixed amount of time is what I'm hearing from you is as I prepare for this, right? As I prepare for my best life, I now have to budget my time. Where does my time go? Okay. So step one,
You got to set up,
budget your time.
budget your time, and make your choices on your time connected to creating your best life. That is lifetime happiness. Okay. And I'm not saying this, you enjoy a ball game on TV, you go to a dance, go to a movie. That's all fine. That needs to be part of your life. That's fine. But you can eliminate the choices that are not helping you. You can eliminate the choice of getting too drunk. You can eliminate the choice of
That was one of my big problems is binge drinking, right? As a young man, we drink way too much in one setting, in two settings. And then that usually led, right, to a violent altercation or some kind of altercation with the law that, again, it continued that cycle of violence, poverty, and incarceration.
And then let's look at health. Let's say that you choose to eat. Okay. My problem, among others, was that I would eat everything in sight. I had no what I should eat and what I shouldn't eat. And as a result of that, no matter what else I did in my life, I was going to be stuck with diabetes, heart disease, cancer potential, blah, blah, blah.
Because you didn't put in enough time to learning about health and nutrition and kind of figuring out what's the best fuel for my body.
Bingo. So you have all those things to look at. Then you have, the other key thing is, how do you react to events in your life, right? Do you lash out and get angry at the small things? Do you take things personally? Do you make assumptions on what somebody's doing? Now, I say all these things because in addition to the physical things in your life, you've got to also be in charge of your emotions. And I say, I'm going to connect this back to business now, and I'll use sports as an analogy. Throughout this world of sports, okay, there's athletes. Some of the athletes are regarded for their character every bit as much as they're regarded for their athletic skills, like Stephen Curry, LeBron James. It goes on and on and on. So you bring to the table high character. And what is high character? It's honesty, right? High character is trustworthiness. High character is how you live your life when you're not in front of people. High character is doing the small things to help people and make them happy. If you engage and you embrace really achieving high character in your life, being an example to others, now your choice of either owning a business or being a key employee and so forth are magnificent. Of all the businesses, several hundred businesses I've looked at, I've gone under the hood. I see what makes the business work. I see what makes the business fail. I see what makes them grow and be successful, et cetera, et cetera. And sustainability in your career, or sustainability in your owning a business, and sustainability in a marriage, sustainability in your relationships with your family, with your kids, and with your community. All of those things are based on making good choices and embracing the aspects of high character. Now, how do you achieve that? There's lots of ways, okay? There's books on the topics, there's groups you can join, there's sessions you can join. In my mid-60s, I went to a couple of years of a class that introduced me to a world of education and information that was available to me. And I finally understood all of my previous 50 years, if you will, in business. And it liberated myself. It liberated me to become exactly who I wanted to be. Now today, in my business relations, in my consulting practices, in my nonprofits that I'm doing, and so forth and so on, I have no fear. I'm not fearful of failure. I'm not fearful of saying the wrong thing, because I know I'm going to say the right thing. Because what's coming out of my mouth is going to be stuff that I've worked hard to understand and appreciate. So my message to people that listen to this podcast is that to be a truly successful person can be represented by you understanding what your best life is and doing everything that you have to do to achieve that. Now, many times, in my case, was certainly the way, you have to extract from your hard drive, internal hard drive, the experiences, the processes, the impact that other things have had in your life during your domestication that caused you certain belief. I'm best off being part of a gang. I'm best off gambling. Best off.
Man, Rob, you are blowing my mind right now. You are now listen. Okay, I grew up, in poverty, right? In Salinas Valley, California. Parents, farm workers, elementary school education, immigrant. Worked 15-hour days, 16-hour days, right, for pennies on the dollar. I was very angry. I saw the haves and the have-nots. We were the have-nots. And I saw the treatment of people. And as growing up, I saw how I was treated completely different than some of the kids with wealth, right? With parents who understood the English language and could communicate with teachers and there was a lot of assumptions in the systems that were pushing me away. The warmness of a school, right? It didn't have that. The safe environment didn't have that. I had to be a tough guy because everyone was a tough guy. And if you weren't a tough guy, other tough guys are going to beat you up, right? And take everything from you. And that was a reality. I remember, having to watch out for my little brother who was 2 years younger than me. He was getting jumped after school. By multiple people, right? And we would be involved in those jumpings, right? To protect or to combat those individuals that are hurting our people, our families, my brother. And so it was so chaotic and so violent that I didn't understand how to exit out of that cycle, right? I heard you say classes. I heard, I'm going to be real with you. There is no classes for someone like me who grew, and there still isn't, right? And there still isn't anything like that for some of these kids that I still see, right? Growing up in these types of environments in and around those cities that are just harmful, right? And I think what happened with me is I got lucky and met a couple people that resembled you, right? That kind of were living this amazing life and knew to kind of push me in a certain way and see what would happen. And one of those individuals pushed me towards the community college system. And really just said, hey, you're leading the wrong people, Mauricio, just straight up. I see you're a leader, but you're leading gangbangers. You need to be leading others. And that was like that first time someone has ever told me that I could potentially be a leader. And because that person was living the life you're talking about, where they're just so full of goodness, they see past the social constructs, right? And they didn't assume, you said the magic word, assumed. That person did not assume that I was there to hurt them, right? Well,
it takes strength. It takes commitment, and it takes strength. Now, I mentioned it before, I had a father that was anything but what I wanted to be, okay? And when he left the house when I was in the 6th grade. And in the 7th grade, with freedom, I read a bunch of books that I thought would be interesting that would help me figure things out. And one of them was an author and a comedian named Dick Gregory. Okay? Loved Dick Gregory. And his book was absolutely amazing. And he's a African-American gentleman and was a big activist in the South at integration and overcoming oppression and so forth. And he was a very brave guy. He was making 10 grand a night in nightclubs and so forth. And he gave that up because it was more important to him to march across the bridge with Martin Luther King and things of that nature. Well, he told a story about going into a cafe in the South. And he sat at the counter where he wasn't supposed to be. And he was surrounded by these, white racists that were saying, listen, boy, whatever you do to that chicken, I'm going to do to you. And he picked the chicken up and he kissed it. Okay? Then that's my claim.
I would have reacted totally different. Now that you gave me that idea.
So, and then other examples that influenced me in my real young age, 7th, 8th, 9th grade, and so forth. Mahatma Gandhi in India, nonviolent protest. Hundreds of thousands of Indians that sat and produced nonviolent reactions to English occupation and colonialism. They got rid of it. Okay. So at some point, you have to look at your environment, such as you did. And you have to look at your environment and say, is that environment really who I am? Am I obligated to be a part of what they're doing? Or do I have an option and a choice of doing something different? Okay? So, and I say these things because if you carry the motivation and the desire to change your paradigm, change the way you think about so many things, the need to fight violence with violence, the need to have a better drug than the drug that's out there, blah, 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 whatever that might be, okay? You decide, well, wait a second now. Is that really my best life? Is that going to create happiness for me? No. Chances are all of those things, A, they're going to give you pleasure when they succeed. B, they're going to give you power and make you feel like I can control my life. Not true. You and I both know that. That's not true. Okay?
Right.
And so if you make assumptions about people, and if you take things personally, you're in a bad way. Okay? My favorite author on the topic is Don Miguel Ruiz, The 4 Agreements. He'll show you the way. Okay? And he's got a great story to tell. So the point being, in preparation for your career, in preparation for what you're going to do with your life and the choices you're going to make and how you spend your time, embrace the fact that you have the ability to create your best life. Now, the what you have to do doesn't matter because the why you want to do it is so powerful. I want to raise kids that are loving, great members of our community. I want to be a...
I want to raise kids that help people, right?
Exactly.
Not hurt people, right?
Exactly.
I want to have a marriage that I am in mad love in, and I don't worry, right? About, because I remember some of my friends' marriages that failed, right? There was no trust.
Mm-mm.
There was absolutely
No.
no trust in the marriage. And almost all of my friends are divorced, like literally. It's so sad because it causes so much more damage, right, to that next generation
Absolutely.
of children. And you know, in some cases it might have been a good idea to have that, but in most cases I think it could have been salvageable. But unfortunately, the people weren't ready.
Well, I have a lady that I'm coaching. Okay, she came to me and said, Rob, look, maybe I could use your help. So we get together online like this once a week for about an hour or more. And her issues were she has a divorce. She has a young boy, great kid, love the lady, very energetic, very smart, and very desirable or desirous to have a great life. So she was engaged to this guy, and she was all excited about the wedding date and so forth and so on. And finally, I see her, she doesn't have her ring on. What was the matter? She says, well, I had to finally realize that what this guy wanted from me was to be a baby machine. That's it. You want a bunch of kids. And I said, no.
Which would have been a great life for him.
Well, no,
Right?
it's your role, man. You're supposed to be doing this, doing that, blah, 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 and giving me kids. And finally, she says, no, I'm not going to do that. And so the point being that marriages are based upon two people with common goals and with a common desire and recognition that people will go through different issues, different times in their life, how they react to things happening to them, who they blame when bad things happen to them, who they give credit for when good things happen to them. So you got to figure all those things out, and you have to commit to each other that, look, you and I are on the same page right now. And as time goes on, this is how we both agree we're going to handle and manage events, conflict. We're not going to lose patience with each other. I'm not going to demand my way and get angry, nor are you. I'm not going to drown my frustrations and my anxiety with booze or drugs. No.
Right.
Okay. I'm going to think.
And that's you putting in what you said, the time, right? That you're putting in the time. You're putting in the time with our communication, right? Is having those conversations. The goal setting is getting together and setting those goals as a couple and saying, this is where we're going to go. This is the plan, right? And work it out together. And it's a negotiation. It's your teammate.
So there's three things that you need to do to really embrace and achieve this. We've already talked about the first one. The first thing you've got to do is figure out who you are, what you want, and what your purpose is. Now, you can do that when you're young. You could sometimes do that when you're middle-aged, or you can do it when you're older, okay? But you have to have as a goal to try and understand, your own life, what you want to do. And if you recognize early on that the best thing I could do is to embrace the 4 agreements, be impeccable with my word, tell the truth at all times. Don't try and con people. Don't con yourself. Just tell the truth, okay? And set reasonable expectations for yourself and whatever the situation might be. So that's truthful. The second thing you've got to do is figure out, how am I going to manage my interpersonal relationships? The people I work with, my wife, my family, my friends in the community, and so forth. What kind of a person am I going to represent to all those people? And the third thing you got to do is recognize that you have to sharpen your sword. You've got to keep improving yourself, keep learning, keep engaged. Okay. One of the best tools for this is if you kind of close your eyes and you envision a room that you're in, and you realize that room's got all kinds of people in it, your friends, your families, the people you work for, and all that stuff in the community. And you realize that you're sitting at your own funeral. And these people are getting up and they're talking about you. What do you want them to say about you? Okay? It's called beginning with the end in mind. So I want these people to...
What's your obituary? What's your obituary say? What are people... Yeah.
Write it
what are
today.
Yeah.
Write your obituary today and live your life that way. Now, if you do all these things, and if you embrace what we've been talking about, the odds of you committing and getting through a full education in technology, in trades, in management, in,
whatever
that might be, okay, you're going to have a much higher chance of succeeding because you're not going to have the other distractions in life that would otherwise hold you back.
It makes you more focused. Instead of all the distractions, instead of all the bullshit that happens, right? A lot of bullshit everywhere.
Exactly.
How do you avoid stepping in bullshit is you got to set that goal.
Exactly. So you get that done. Now you go and maybe, you find a partner in life, okay, that you want to spend your time with. God bless you. That's great. You found somebody that feels the same way that you do. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you go through this together before you decide to hook up. Maybe they feel the same way that you do, and maybe you feel the same way that she or he does, but you don't necessarily know how to implement it. So together, maybe you're going to spend some time implementing for both of you what this is all about. And once you've gotten to that point, you can say, you know what? You are the right person. I want to spend my time with you. And you go through the same when you look.
And if you don't have a partner, right, you're still working on self. Right? You're working on self. You're working on that goal, whatever it is, right? School, trade, business, whatever it is, right?
Yep.
And you don't realize it, but you are becoming this much brighter, better person. That's
exactly
moving on a journey, and that relationship, right, wherever it may be, will come, right, at a later time when you're ready, when that time is ready. And now looking back, I'm in my late 40s, right? Looking back, it's like, wow, the journey, you can't predict this. Mm-hmm. You can only go on this path. And I learned that once I turned the switch of like, I'm going to do my best to be as good a person as possible and help those in need. And, that's just my overall goal. And how I do that, I don't know yet. I'm hoping that through my job and through what I'm doing in life, it's doing it. And I think it is, right? And that's why I wake up every morning so full of energy now.
Exactly.
I wake up every morning saying, like, I don't have a time clock. This is fun, and
you can go through your life. You can go through each day. You can wake up each day and say, I wonder what opportunities I'm going to have today to lift somebody up.
Yeah.
Maybe it's at the grocery store putting someone's cart away. Maybe it's stopping and letting somebody cross the street. Maybe it's saying hi to somebody and paying them a compliment that they never expected from a stranger. Hey, man, I like your sweater,
Yeah, because they put it on for a reason. It's the reason you put on something, right? It's you expect.
So if you do that, the gift that you give to somebody of yourself in that moment gives you 3 or 4 times as much in return.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, Rob, here, just for our audience, right, is it doesn't have to be complex.
No.
My thing was just quit being an asshole. That what started. I'm going to be honest, hey, that was how it started. It's like, I'm kind of like a tough guy, but tough guy is a jerk. A tough guy is mean. You know what I mean? And a tough guy doesn't take shit from anyone. And that was kind of my upbringing, right? So I had to come to a realization one day that I'm just an asshole, to most of society. So step 1, don't be an asshole.
And make sure you know what an asshole is. Okay.
Right.
Make sure you can see it.
And then now it's don't be an asshole, and now it's just be nice.
Absolutely.
And it started to change things, right? It started to slowly change some of those outcomes. And again, it's not that simple, but if you have to make it that simple for you to understand it, then do it. That's what I did. Make it simple to where I could understand it.
And there's lots of ways of doing that, okay? But all these are principles. The choices you make in your food, the choices you make in your friends, all these time and choices. It's all about time and choices, right? And so the other thing I'll share on the back end of all this is after 50 some odd years in working with people that's looking to help prevent problems, solve problems in their business, in their life, and so forth and so on. At the end of the day, the people that truly embraced living their best life and wanting to elevate others and helping everybody live their best life, they were always the most successful businesses I worked with. They were the best employees at those businesses that I worked with. They had people trusted them.
Yeah. People trusted them, brought them business, made them money. Yeah.
So there's a lot of people that I've met along the way, that were pricks and assholes in business. They own businesses and they were a prick. And so I've made it my business over the last several years in my work to begin my discussion with people that want my help is I've created a whole lot of successful businesses, and I've created a whole lot of successful businessmen and women. Okay, professionals. You name the industry. You name the type of business. Lawyers, painters, auto repair shops. Doesn't matter. Print.
A lot of restaurants, a lot, whatever. Yeah.
Whatever. So I always start these days with, look, I'd be happy to help you. I know the tools that we need to get that done. But it's got to start with you. Okay?
Right. The person.
Let me take a good look under your hood and see what you're about and what influence you have on the people that you work with, on the people that you buy your supplies from, on the people that your customers. So all your stakeholders, and the word stakeholders represents everybody that has an interest in your business.
Including your partner.
Absolutely. So, so let's look at all those relationships and how those relationships are working. You might have a great idea, and your great idea and your fierce leadership. And when I say fierce, I mean whether it's intimidation or promising or what have you, you know how to push people to get something done. Okay? Because people need stuff. People need money. They need an income. They need whatever you got. Okay? And they want to get it from you. And you're going to give it to them, sometimes with conditions. Okay? And sometimes these conditions is that they got to put up with you being an asshole. Okay? So the first thing I want to do is work with this person that has this business. And I want to do everything I can to begin to open their eyes to what I'm talking about. In my life, I have only met, let's say out of 300 businesses, I can maybe name 10 of them that already had their shit together. And they were incredible. And I loved working that out. And I had a radio show at one point, and I would have these people on my radio show as a guest talking about these things. And that was before I really knew myself what some of these things really meant. And I've admired them. Some of these people appeared in business books, okay, as examples of people you should do.
Industry leaders,
Yeah. Big companies. I mean, I had some very big national companies. I had little businesses, you name it. So the idea is, and the reason that we're spending all this time on minding your business is that you got to realize that your business is everything.
And it's you. Your business is you. We don't want to think of business as just you owning a business. It's you are a business because you are the one that's generating this life. You're the one that's generating the income and really being in control of and seeing yourself.
Exactly. So, my message really is that, look, especially those that are on the forefront looking out at the future and saying what kind of career they want, whether they want to do it themselves and so forth and so on. And so they're going to go to college or they're going to go to trade school. They're going to get skills or whatever they're going to do. That's all great. But you have to allow as a course in life. And you got to put the time in, and you have to recognize that the paradigm that you enter this phase of your life in may or may not be honest to you. It may not be healthy for you. And so you've got to say, well, wait a second, before I continue and bring my shit into college or into a business or into any of these things, I got to get my shit together. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm suggesting that means living your best life. It's all about writing your obituary as you begin to enter this phase of your life. What do you want people saying about you? What do you want your employer saying about you? What do you want your employees saying about you? What do you want your community saying about you? What do you want your son saying about you? What do you want your parents saying about you? What do you want your best friends saying about you? Okay. And do you like what they're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
And so you let that be your God.
And that's how you prepare, right? And that's how you prepare. Let's do that lesson, right? Write it out. Type it out.
Yep.
Think about it. It's like, what are they going to say when I'm not here? And if I'm not here next year, if I'm not here in 20 years, if I'm not here in 30 years, what are people going to say about me when I'm not here? And you're so right. You start with that end goal, and you reverse engineer backwards.
And bear in mind that what you do when people aren't looking is every bit as important as what you do when people are looking. Yes, having these things embraced. So, again, I mean, I've dealt with people at every single imaginable phase of their life. Professional athletes, leaders and business people, international recognized people, et cetera, et cetera. And so if anybody that ever listens to this podcast wants to reach out to me and ask me about anything that's related to what we're talking about with this, or what do you know about becoming a doctor? What do I know about opening a poultry business? What do you know about being a printer? What do you know about running a business? What form of business should I take? What things should I look at? I mean, you name it, and I've probably prepared it for dinner on more than one occasion. So.
And we thank you for that. And you heard it here first. Rob's available to help guide you through some of those life obstacles, right? That include not only self-healing and moving forward, but also your business, your career, your marriage, your life, whatever that may be, right? Right? Because
I would love to have issues sent in to us. And let me address it.
Please, if you're listening to this, please comment. Please leave drop some knowledge on us. We review those, and then we'll definitely cover those topics and try to answer all your questions. We''ll do an episode where we're only answering some of the questions that are posed by our listeners. So looking forward to that one as well. But Rob, as we break down the steps, right, to just becoming your best self. Step one was that other podcast we did again, right, of just recognizing there's a problem. And we talked about how you can do that. We talked about some examples of people you've worked with that have done that. And me, I'm reflecting a lot now. Thinking about some of those decisions that I've made over my life, right? And then most recently, all the amazing decisions I made, right? I used to make the worst decision forever. For 30 years, I made the worst decisions. Right. And then after that I started, again, applying some of these principles that you mentioned. The last, 18 have been just amazing because of just the different kind of mentality that I now carry in my everyday business and my managing of my own time. So again, Rob, oh man, I mean, what you're giving us is gold. So thank you very much for your time, for your energy, for your knowledge. And what do you want to leave our one thought, one feeling that you want to leave our audience with before we cut out today's session?
Yeah, it's never, ever, ever too late in your life, no matter what you've done, no matter where you are in your life. It's never too late to be your best self. I got into the best shape of my entire life in my early 60s. Better than I was in high school when I wrestled and played ball, all that stuff. It's never too late to adopt the things that you need to adopt to live your best life. Ideally, you'll have exposure to these ideas when you're about to enter college or your career. Makes it a hell of a lot easier. I can tell you that firsthand. That's what I'm existing for today, is to help people that would like help and are asking for help, that recognize that maybe there's some choices that they can make that would be better for them. I want to share what I've learned, man. I tell you, it's been a long life. It's been a ton of episodes. It's been, all kinds of changes in my life. My wife and I have weathered the storms that I've created. And I mean, when I look at your family, honestly, Mauricio, I mean, there's a glow that comes out of your family where you live.
Thank you.
I know that you guys have this, okay? And it makes me so happy to have met you and your incredible family, because I see what you do and I know how you've embraced it. Okay. My life is one that now, if I can help inspire anybody. What's the name of your company again?
Inspírame. How about inspire me for Spanish?
Exactly. Well, I'm Tio Rob, hoping to embrace that and represent that to anybody that wants my help. And it's not because of me. It's because I want to do for you. I'm a book in here, and it's a big book. And I can turn to the right page to help you.
I'm so looking forward to our next episode, Rob. And again, thank you very much from the bottom of our heart here at Inspírame Techo Guide, where we're always focused on giving you the best advice we can, guiding you through any academic or trade program or career question or whatever it might be, right? The quickest and most affordable way possible, because we're all about getting you the new skills, those listeners that are out there. If you've been told that you can't do it, yes, you can. We're the ones that are now going to show you how. So thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome. And one final thought, the journey is the destination.
That's right.
Okay?
That's right.
The life that you live between here and there, that's the destination. That's what you enjoy. That's where everything comes from. So make it your business today to make somebody else smile, make somebody else laugh, lift somebody else up, and lift yourself up in the process.
Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mauricio. See you next time.
Thank you for tuning into Techo Guide, the app focused on bringing you tools and content to help you make better decisions about school, life, and career. We hope this episode has inspired you to pursue and excel in your own educational and career journey. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, and share.